So let's look at some other roots besides a square root that we can simplify. So let's think of cube roots first. So let's say the cube root of 8. So if we have a number in that spot where I have the 3, we would say that that's the cube root. Or if we'll do a couple in a minute where there's a 4 or 5, it'd be the 4th root or 5th root. I mean, you could read this 3rd root, but typically we say cube root. Just like instead of x to the 3rd power shorthand, we say cubed. So this is the opposite of cubing something. So it's like we're trying to figure out what to the 3rd power gets us 8. And I know maybe you kind of can just think of it right away, but think of it like this. We're looking at what to the 3rd power is 8 to replace that 8. It would be 2. 2 to the 3rd power is 8. So then that cube root and that cube, those are opposite operations, so it's like those cancel. So my answer is 2. So this is the opposite of saying 2 to the 3rd power is 8. That'd be like our check. Okay, how about the cube root of -8? Now with square roots, we can't have a negative on the inside. We can't take the square root of a negative. But with cube roots, or really any odd roots, we can. Because if we try to replace -8 with something to the 3rd power, -2 does work out. -2 to the 3rd power is -8. So my answer would be -2. Okay, and as a check, -2 to the 3rd power, that is -8. So it's like we're just doing the opposite of that. Opposite of cubed. Okay, how about, let's do an x now. How about the cube root of x cubed? Okay, so like with square roots, we're looking at what times itself gets us that. But now cube, it's like we need 3 of them. So since in this case, x to the 3rd, that's like x times x times x. Since there's 3 of them, one of them is going to come out as simplified. Or if you, again, think of it like the cube and the cube root are opposite operations, so they cancel each other. Or how about the cube root of x to the 6th? So if I rewrite this as what cubed is x to the 6th, if I put x squared there and do my power rule for exponents, x squared cubed is x to the 6th. The cube and the cube cancel, and I'm left with x squared. How about one more cube root one before we go on to some other ones? How about the cube root of 125 x to the 18th? Okay, so I'm looking for what to the 3rd power is going to get me that 125x to the 18th. So in terms of the 125, 5 to the 3rd power, 5 times 5 times 5, that's 125. And then x to the, it's going to have to be what times 3 gets me 18? So 6. X to the 6th to the 3rd, multiply 6 times 3, because I've got the power rule there, to the 18th. So then the cube and the cube root cancel out, and I am left with 5x to the 6th. So that's my simplified, fully simplified answer. Okay, how about a couple other ones? Other roots. So this one would read the 4th root of 625. So this one we're trying to figure out what to the 4th power gets me 625. Okay, it is 5. Now this is one you might have to kind of play around with your calculator to figure out what that is. To figure out what to the 4th power gets me 625. But there's a way to do this in your calculator as well. And we could have been doing this with some of the cube root ones as well. So what we would do is first you have to hit 4 because that's the root that you want. So whatever the root is that you want, you hit that, and then you're going to hit second, and then hit your exponent button, because above there is the x root. Okay, so a lot of times in the past we've just been using the square root button, hitting second x squared to get the square root, but now if we want other roots, that's what that symbol means, that x root. So then once we hit second, hit your exponent button, that x root is going to show up after the 4, and then it starts a parenthesis, and then you just enter your 625 and hit enter, and it'll give you 4. Okay, how about the 4th root of 16x to the 20th? So this one I'm trying to figure out, 4th root, what to the 4th power gets me 16x to the 20th. So the coefficient part is going to be 2. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8 times 2 is 16. And then the x part, this is going to be x to the 5 times 4 to get to 20. So x to the 5th. So then it's like the 4th root and the 4th power cancel out, and I get 2x to the 5th. Okay, which notice, I mean, in terms of the x part, it's like we're doing 20 divided by 4 to get the 5. Okay, how about the 4th root of negative 16? Okay, this one, kind of like with square roots, you have a negative on the inside. It doesn't work out. This is not a real number. If you try to do that one in your calculator, you're going to get an error message. Not a real number. How about 5th root one? The 5th root of negative 32. Okay, now that one, we're back to an odd root. So this one does work out. This one is negative 2. Negative 2 to the 5th power, that is negative 32. So with odds, we can have negative on the inside, just not if it's an even root.